economic needs, they're not necessarily thinking those terms. They're thinking of how we're going to support ourselves. We have no other way of doing so. Collaborative courts are a wonderful thing. Each community that has one has always had a champion. Without a champion, somebody that's going to push it forward, it will not occur and it will not thrive. And these exist all over the country. Judge Lindley helped us in San Diego to set up ours. And each community has to do it really in a way that's suitable for their community. Prior to us starting ours, a group of us went to Florida, we went to Texas, we went to actually Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has a very active behavioral health court. These are things that, as the judge indicated, will change people's lives. In fact, all my years as a public defender, 11 years in LA, 25 in San Diego, the only time I could really say I felt proud of what I was doing for the last few years when I was involved with the behavioral health court that I was part of setting up and running. Before that, you provided a function. I mean, what do public defenders do typically? Just go back a second. My son's a cop, all right? He didn't start off being a cop, but for a number of reasons he became one. And he knew that they'd probably ask, what does your dad do during the interview process? And we talked about that, and he said, well, you know, my dad's a public defender. You guys arrest them, but they're the ones that talk people into pleading guilty. So we've got a sense of that. It's not so much that I feel like I have dirty hands, because when you're involved in day-to-day work, you're concerned with the small details. Now that I'm retired, in fact, this is probably the third time I've worn long pants since I've been retired. So I feel honored today. Now I can sort of look at things in a much broader fashion, in a global fashion, and realize that, okay, people have tried to do the right thing, but most people have not. I think, as Leslie mentioned, what we can come away with today is the sense that we can take back control of our lives in our country. But we have to begin to persuade those people that we're not interested in just being scared because of law and order. We want the money put in a way that's going to benefit all of us through collaborative courts and other means of intervening. It doesn't do good for criminal justice to be reactive, and that's all we are now. Police should be not reactive. They should be the ones trying to prevent the crime from occurring. And if they are given that mission, so they become more of a social worker. That's fine. It can do some real good. And those communities that have seen a decrease in high crime, it's because the cops have been on the streets. People know them. They trust them. They realize that if there's a problem, they can go to them without fear of being jeopardized because of that. Probation now has become much more social oriented in the sense that they can provide the services to individuals so they can succeed. I mean, it be housing, education, training, addiction issues, rather than just saying, these are the conditions of your probation, you follow it or I'm going to send you back to jail. Of course, we sort of now know in California it doesn't really happen too much anymore, but they can do much more, and I think that those communities that are seeing successes have taken that seriously. If you want to see the 3-page single-line document that I wrote, Leslie can provide it to you. You know, it isn't so bad. I mean, I noticed a few typos, and I think in part I might have been a little tequila-induced, but so once again, I think we said enough, and now we're going to do some question and answering. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming today, and thank you panelists for all being here. Wonderful. We have some time for questions and answers. If anybody has something they would like to ask the panelists, just raise your hand. And can we use this mic, Stephen, or?
Yeah, just careful with the cord.
Here you go, Bruce. I know this guy. He's a glass blower.
Yes.
Judge Pettis, how does one come before a collaborative court instead of a regular criminal court?
That's very
Careful with the speaker.
Not like that. Typically what happens is now everyone knows that they exist, and typically comes from their counsel or the judge. If they see someone that's clearly mentally ill or has a addiction is a primary problem, they will refer them to the court for them to be looked at to see whether or not they'll take them. The collaborative court is, as we go along, I wanted to mention this, I didn't get a chance to. We are finding now, because of time, we've been around for a while, the people that we get the biggest bang for the buck are those that are the greatest risk of returning. Because if you have people that are low risk of returning, then why put money out? They're not going to come back anymore. So that's why this county in particular has been in the lead of opening up doors for very serious crimes. And we are finding that if we treat them and they go through the system, they're not coming back. And those are very likely the folks that fall within that 75% recidivism rate. So as we move along, we are finding that we need these people that are very high risk of returning. And that's who we're trying to treat. So it's a very slow process. You remember the judicial system works very slowly, but as we start to see now the effects and how effective the courts are, the more likely other judges are going to be sending them to us. In fact, I just got a call yesterday from a very staunchly conservative judge who said, I've got someone here who's mentally ill, what do I do with him? So they're starting to see now that there is an alternate than just incarcerating those that are sick.
Thank you. Thank you. And also, I would just like to say that there are so many programs that have been on 60 Minutes, on Lisa Ling, and Kamu Bell, showing that in other countries, in Germany and the Scandinavian countries, they have a whole different philosophy of how to handle a person once they've committed a crime, that they feel it is a shortcoming of the society, of the country. They are kept as respectfully incarcerated to keep their time to think about what was the problem and to have help to get a profession as close to what it would be like if they were living outside of prison. And by doing that, there's not this giant transition of coming out of prison and going back into society. They come back with a job skill, they've been treated with respect, their anger management is way low. Once you've been incarcerated 10, 15 years, you're a very angry person. So they have recidivism below 20%. And I think that that is the goal for our country and our society, in my opinion.
If I might say. We are in such the lead that I had worldwide attention. We had representatives from Japan, Indonesia, Israel, Canada, that literally came to our court, flew internationally to see what we're doing in Australia, because that's how much many of these courts are they're not sure what they're to do. And they're hearing about these courts now internationally, so we're getting international. Well, I had judges from the Supreme Court of Indonesia come and sit with me to see what we were doing, and were fascinated by the results that we had. But that's how much this is now catching fire, like I said.
You didn't mention Russia.
Not Russia.
No. Yes.
I remember when we started residency before, and after a little while it kind of phased out. Is that something that collaborative court has now taken up? And the drug, I know drug residency court had phases that each client needed to complete in order to move on to the next phase. Can you kind of explain?
There is something in Orange County within the judicial system called dependency, juvenile dependency. It's those that parents have done things that potentially could have harmed the children, so the children are taken from them or they're given services. Yeah, it has been a dynamic. It has changed a little bit in terms of what we're covering now. Part of it, and from the dependency side, is there has been a pullback on the dependency side just because of resources. We fight all the time to make sure that we are funded. And now, since we can show that we're saving money, now we can begin to start to expand. But there was a point at which we were concerned whether or not we were even going to survive. During the Great Recession, we were in serious trouble, and they were cutting back every single place you could. But the one thing that Judge Lindley stood on, and there was a real issue on that, and she kept this place, she kept that, it's its own satellite court there, and it's still under fire because people want to shut it down. But what she could say is, we have saved $10 million since we started here. So how can you take this away? We're saving lives and money, they're not coming back. Now we have the data to support it. And we've been in mental court for the United States for a long period of time.
The naysayers always refer to a court like this as a boutique court.
Yes.
But,
It's
that was
exactly
really
what they call it.
Boutique court.
That's what they call it.
But that was demeaning, and anybody, as the judge has indicated, who's come in and seen what occurs will be so impressed. And it's been around long enough to see the evidence to demonstrate the fact that this is cost effective. It saves lives, it saves the community. It's not just getting rearrested, it's not going back to the hospital. It's not leaving your family without the resources that they need. It's the kind of thing that can be expanded, but once again, you need somebody that will carry the torch. Orange County was that way. San Diego, not as much. I mean, we fought for 10, 12 years before we were able to persuade them that we should start something on our own. And it was only because of the Mental Health Service Act money that was put aside for us that we were able to do so.
What is the opposition's rationale for not wanting the court?
It wastes time. You know, it takes more time than the
But
judges.
you proved your point. You proved your point.
Exactly. No, we know that, but it took a lot of persuasion to, in fact, convince our Board of Supervisors that this should be funded. In fact, that's why we had to emphasize this is public safety that we're ensuring. We had to establish criteria initially that we were going to exclude people, sex offenders, certain violent offenders, all kinds of people that were excluded, not because we thought we couldn't deal with them, but because Board of Supervisors was afraid to touch them. Yeah.
You have another question?
I was recently in traffic court, and I mean, not traffic court, I was there for a traffic violation, and a young defendant came up to the judge and for in possession of marijuana, and the judge just went, "Get out of here."
Yeah.
He just hit his gavel. And my question is there any commutation of sentences for harsh drug sentences in the past?
We just had a huge proposition that changed the dynamics of drug possession tremendously.
Because there's a big difference between, you know, just the judge said, "Get out of here, go home," you know, and then somebody having a 15-year sentence. I mean,
Well,
we're still living in that disparity, right?
Well, California just recently changed through a proposition that reduced possession charges of what are controlled substances from felonies to misdemeanors. And that has changed the landscape
But did they
tremendously.
actually redo the sentencing?
Yeah, and they actually redo
okay.
sentencing from those in the past.
Well,
They
that's-
can come forward and actually petition the court for a reduction in charge.
Wow. Any other questions? Yes, right back
Could I
there.
just add one thing? What you're talking about is changing the debate. And in terms of how you handle this, people that come through the courts. And my frame of reference is changing the debate on issues of wrongful convictions. Politicians, who basically are the people who have to buy into this and support it, didn't want to be equated with not being tough on crime. And in sort of the area of wrongful convictions, the idea was, particularly like in Illinois and Texas, when we were talking about the death penalty, was nobody's in favor of killing the wrong person. So let's make the system work so that if you're going to have this law, it's going to work correctly. And so it's a different debate that I'm talking about, but it is changing the debate on so that people can feel secure when they go back to their communities that this is something that is not going to bite them and they're not going to have someone coming into the community who's a graduate of this courtroom and is going to wreak havoc and say, see, that's the big fear, in my opinion. And fear is what drives it. And it's all about changing the debate and getting people to be brave.
Okay, thank you, Maurice. Yes, would you stand up when you talk? Yeah, just so we can hear better.
Yes, I'd like to see if you would address the fact of the recidivism because they got no place to go, no supportive services. I work for a new program that's helping women who are incarcerated out of jail. Guess what my biggest problem is? It's the housing, having an open drug bed. Do you guys deal with that, especially the homeboys when they come out and they say, I've got no place to go?
Yeah, we're pretty, since I'm in charge of that, we usually invest in them, as Father Greg always said. Luckily, we get a big chunk of money from private funders that gives us the flexibility to be able to relocate and also be in utilizing all the resources that do exist within the greater LA area. You know what I mean? So, like, for example, transitional housing, there's Amity, there's Royal Palms. I use every single resource that I can, try that first. But when we find ourselves in roadblocks, then we have to get creative as well. And so, but most importantly, we have private funders who help us to accommodate this. But we always find these challenges. And then what happens with substance abuse, at times it's like you got Health Right 360. So now the drug treatment centers align themselves to that funding. And then, oh, no more GR beds, because now there's Health Right 360. Okay, no more Health 3. And so then it just puts my clients in a bind. And so that's why we tend to just invest in them and pay their intake fees at times, just so that we can bypass all that and let them catch up to us in a sense. But we're blessed in that way, so we're fortunate. But I can only imagine how difficult it could be out here in Orange County. I work with people from out here from Orange County who are always reaching out to us to see how we can better assist.
They help us a lot down here. They've got the ideas.
Leslie, if I could just comment. The judge mentioned how we changed our laws in California as a reaction to the fact that our prisons were overcrowded. So we had Assembly Bill 109 and Prop 47. What means now people will be put back into the community supposedly with the resources that are necessary to deal with unemployment, lack of housing, addiction. The problem is there aren't the resources. In fact, I just spoke to the coordinator from San Diego yesterday, and she indicated to me that's exactly the problem. Too often we've decided we're going to do something special. We're going to close down our large state hospital. People are going to be treated in the community. That never happened, right? And if in fact we begin to shortchange ourselves in the lack of resources, we're going to find ourselves once again in a situation where we're being inundated by people we want to help, but we have no place to take them.
Yes, the gentleman right here.
Hi, how you doing? My question goes back to the health issue, healthcare or mental issue. Now, you stated that a lot of times we're looking at people with mental illnesses. But what about those people that don't have them, go into incarceration, but when they come out, they're affected? My question is, could PTSD be relative to incarceration?
Absolutely, positively. Let me explain. We have a combat veterans court in Orange County. It's a model for the nation. And you see people coming back for more, those that were actually pulling triggers. And you see the PTSD in them. Coming out of prison for long periods of time, you see the same type of reaction. Because it's a war zone. You may not have rifles, but it's a war zone. And you go in one way, you'll come out differently, for sure. Remember, it used to be called, it is called the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. I don't see that in the prison system at all. I wanted to mention something that the public defender at the end mentioned. The Safe Street Act was the act that passed the reduction from felonies to misdemeanors. And I remember reading the proposal, and I was trying to wrap my head around how are they going to figure out how this is saving money Because what they were going to do is, because it was going to save money in incarceration, they were going to figure out how much that was and use it for treatment. It ain't happening. It ain't happening at all. So we've got people on the streets. Remember I said they go to two places. Either they're ending up dying or being on the streets. And we've actually seen an increase in the homeless population in Orange County since the passage of that act. Because they aren't getting treated. They're getting put out on the street, and there's no place for them to get treatment. And then the cycle starts again. It's a tragedy. It really is a tragedy. We saw it coming too, because until you treat either their mental illness or their addiction, and I mean, it takes a lot of work. You're dealing with a lot of trauma that goes back to childhood. And until you take the time and the energy to treat it, they're going to be revolving in and out. Addiction's a terrible thing. And it's very hard to treat it. It takes a long time, it takes a lot of structure, it takes a lot of caring. And a lot of people don't want to put that energy in. It's easier to walk away. But I have not seen, and I'm not trying to be political here at all, but what I'm saying is we have not seen the money that was supposed to come out of that proposition there to treat. It's just not there. And I really do believe, and in talking to somebody, we have a homeless court at our court, which is, by the way, by far and away the most rewarding work I've ever had, where you can just walk into the court without having any charge to get resources, to get assistance. But in talking to the people that are on the ground, they have said there's no doubt that our homeless population has increased after the passage of this because we don't have resources to treat them. It's just that simple.
Thank you. We have a question right here.
Thank you, Leslie. Hi, I'm Valerie Buswell. I want to thank you guys for being here. A couple of you had mentioned about Orange County resources. So there's Project Kinship that works with Homeboy in the Streets that has Father Boyle's blessing. It is working here in Orange County, and we work with them in Santa Ana Unified School District. So if you need resources, we have them. But you're exactly right. There's no place to put them. Also with Prop 47, I just want to let you guys know, the Santa Ana Unified did put in a grant for about $50 million from Prop 47. So we're hoping we get that so we can work with all our community partners, because you're exactly right, Your Honor. It came out, it rolled out, and then there was no money.
Have you seen an increase in homelessness since then?
We have several more hundred homeless children, yes, since Prop 47. In my other hat, I work for the probation department, but I'm not going to represent them. I'm representing the school district. And I do work in the 8109 world, so we can have a long conversation. But housing is the number one. But I want to thank you guys, because this is the first time that we're having this type of conversation. So Leslie, thank you, because there are groups that meet monthly, and I encourage all of you to participate. Because no matter what the media says, they're going to come out, and they're going to come back into our neighborhoods. And we all need to work together as a village to help them. So thank you for being here today. I appreciate it.
We have just a few more minutes. Are there any more questions? Gloria?
Well, with all these opportunities, can any of you suggest any volunteer opportunities for these children who are suddenly homeless, for people who just need somebody to give them some backing when they go back into the courts?
I'd like to mention something. I haven't mentioned it, but I'm going to mention it. We have the executive director of the Community Courts Foundation. This is a foundation that provides eyeglasses, treatment, housing, education, and it's done through folks that get together, see what the courts are doing, and provide funding for these things that we could not provide otherwise, and that's Kathy Burnham, and I want to thank her. I told her this, and I say this, wait, and I'm going to embarrass her a little bit. Hold on. I said this about Kathy. I said, when I met Kathy, I said she's the person that really puts smiles on people's faces that are scarred by frowns. When we needed something, we needed housing, we needed education, it was an emergency, we would call her and she'd say, I'll give you the funding because of good folks that are in the foundation. The foundation has provided an extraordinary help with these things that we can't help because we don't have the resources to do it. So I can't say enough about the foundation. My predecessor, Judge Lindley, called it the crown jewel in the collaborative courts, and it's absolutely true. So I wanted to mention that. That's one way to do it.
Kathy, stand.
I could pull together. There's a blank side on the back, so talk to other people, get other emails, and have a way to stay connected now after you leave today. This is just the beginning. It's not the program is over and we're done. All right?
Leslie, I think Eve had a question or a comment.
Eve, stand up here.
No, I am absolutely delighted to hear about all the alternative programs, alternative courts, the Innocence Project, all of the wonderful progress. I've been involved with both mental health and the prison system for decades, so this is something I'm excited about. What has me scared absolutely a whole lot is the whole concept of private prisons and CCAs and those organizations that get paid the more people they have in their prisons. And those seem to be flourishing. At the same time, all this other stuff that you guys are talking about is thriving. And could somebody address that, please?
It's my understanding in California, we don't do the private prisons in the state system. The feds might do it. In fact, I'm pretty sure they do. Although there was recent talk, remember at the end of the Obama era, it became an issue, and they were bidding to be closed down or phased out. Now there's talk about, well, maybe this is the way to go with them. Eve makes a great point that there are things that we've started in the past that we've ended. In San Diego, we had a program called SB 618, and it would identify individuals when they first came into the criminal system. At the arraignment, a district attorney would in fact identify those people that they thought were good candidates. The person would plead guilty in return for the fact that they were going to be kept locally in San Diego, and in addition, they were going to receive specialized care within the jail system, prison system, to transition them out. And once they were out of the community, they would receive the same kind of help. The idea being cut back on the failure rate. It worked, but then it was defunded.
I just wanted to make a comment about the federal system. Yes, the idea was that we would phase out all use. We had a limited use of private prisons for lower level offenders, but as you probably know, there were some big scandals in some of these facilities where really they're profit driven. There was a lot of violence and healthcare issues, and so those made the news, and I think there was growing concern about what really goes on in these private prisons. So the federal system did initiate the plan to completely end using private prisons. However, I just saw on the Marshall Project website, which is a wonderful site, that the situation with immigration and ICE, they've been directed to make contracts with private prisons, and I think the title of the article was, "Private Prisons Are Licking Their Chops Over What's Happening with Immigration and Detaining Immigrants." So that's very frightening.
I'm going to be talking about that in the next panel.
Wonderful.
Here, right here. Thank you for waiting. Stand up so we can hear.
Good afternoon. My question is more, I hear about the process, right, that goes throughout like the court system and then the programs that come thereafter. But I don't hear about, I don't know, and I'd like for you guys to inform me. What about the people that carry out these orders? So, like attorneys and judges and, these people of higher power, or even those that are guards at the prisons, the juvenile correctional facilities. Are there programs that are directed towards them that creates this idea